So what do we want to talk about today? Does anybody have anything precedent that's like really bugging you that we need to get to?
I'd like
AB
to know when
1482.
we can issue 60-day notices or 30-day notices.
You want to know when you can issue a 30-day or a 60-day notice to terminate tenancy? My crystal ball is broken. I'd love to tell you go, 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 but the reality is, and just hear me when I say this, even when they lift the moratorium to shelter in place, because that's the win, and we're waiting for the win to happen so the rest of the cards fall into place. Even when they lift that, keep this in mind. We haven't heard from Fair Housing yet. They've been extremely quiet through this entire process. So if a tenant can call code enforcement and turn us in for something and we can't touch them for 6 months, my guess is going to be that a global pandemic is going to have sort of somewhat similar guidelines.
Okay.
So I think that after they lift the moratorium, I'm still letting people in, sorry. After they lift the moratorium to shelter in place, we'll have a better idea of when you're going to be able to do that. But right now, if you really need somebody out, I never thought I'd tell people this. Avoid the legal process and use cash for keys.
Okay.
I mean, that's one way that you can try to get them out in the event that you need possession right now. But reality is, it's going to be a long time before we see a successful eviction from this.
Okay.
Hey, Patty, on that note, if you don't mind me jumping in.
Of course.
We just processed a claim on reassure rent with a tenant up in Central California who claimed COVID-19, and I guess he's a trainer and wasn't able to work, wasn't able to pay his rent. The landlord submitted the claim to us, and we were able to successfully negotiate a cash for keys move out. So we got that property back in about 8 weeks.
So just so everybody knows, Eric has, he's an attorney, just so that you know. Thank you, Eric. And he also owns Reassure Rent, which is a rent default insurance. So it's another tool that we have in our arsenal. If the tenants don't pay the rent, we call Eric because we already signed up with him. Fairly inexpensive. It's another way to help protect our asset, especially for that landlord that is skating on that thin ice, okay, if you will, and they don't have any wiggle room for error, let alone repairs, right? That's the owner that we want to send Eric's direction. That's the guy that is going to get the domino effect if something goes wrong. Eric's there to help hold that part together.
Wow.
So
and you checks in the mail, Patty.
Hey, I use services that I promote. You know what I mean? It's not, Eric, what's your number?
Eric's 323, and I'll put it in the notes too. I'm sorry, 833
Wait,
Tenant.
we went from cell phone to business.
Yeah, I did. Let me give you the business number is 833 Tenant. So it's 833-383-6268.
Perfect. If anybody else needs that, let me know. I'll put you in contact with Eric. Great guy. Default insurance, definitely something that's nice to have. Thank you, Eric. We see that there in the event that we need that type of thing. But as far as serving notices to terminate tenancy, I couldn't tell you right now if my hair was on fire when would be considered a good time to do that and it not be considered retaliation on a global pandemic.
I have a question, Patty.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my question. If someone signed a 1-year lease and then they moved out after 6 months, and in order to mitigate their losses, they had for security deposit, they had equivalent to 1 month's rent plus 500. So was I required to send them the security deposit refund within 21 days of them moving out, or within 30 extra days while I tried to mitigate their losses and find a new tenant?
Okay, you're asking me a triple loaded question, not a double loaded question. First of all, it all depends on what your rental agreement says. Okay?
Well, they have
I understand that, but without looking at the default in your rental agreement in that structure, I can't honestly answer your question. That's
So there
number
is a
one.
default- would there be a default in there? I guess there would be, right? Oh, yeah, there is.
There could be, yes.
Yeah.
Without seeing what you have, it's hard for me to answer that question. But I can tell you this. Even though they gave you do the estimated disposition within 21 days, and then you do a final once you've re-rented the property and you're ready to do your final.
Okay, well, that answered the question. So I am required when they vacate, leave it vacant, to do the estimated disposition within 21 days and then the final later if there's any money left over. There was no money left over. They actually owed us money, but no what?
I understand that, but you still have a responsibility to do the final disposition within 14 days of receiving the final invoice.
Right.
So even if they owe you money when it's all said and done, you still have to do that final within 14 days of you receiving the final invoice. If that final invoice is a new tenant moving in, so you have that date, then so be it. That's the day. But you have 14 days from that date to do your final disposition. If you don't do both and you did an estimated and you never did a final, then you didn't do your job.
And what if I only did a final and never did an estimated? That's where I'm.
Okay, if you did a final, then there is no more money to negotiate. That was the final number.
Right. Okay, but unfortunately for me, the final was done 45 days after they moved out, not 21 calendar days. So I could be in trouble for that if they wanted to, right?
They could sue you for up to 3 times the amount of the security deposit.
Right. Okay, even though they breached.
You didn't do your job.
Right.
I mean, let's really look at this from a very, very broad perspective. Tenants are put on a pedestal in the eyes of the court, and the landlord is the bad guy. Okay? Right. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the math of, but they defaulted. Yes, they did. You still didn't do your job.
Right. Okay, now I know. Thanks.
Sorry. All right, anybody have anything else they want to chit chat about? I have stuff I want to talk to you guys about. Anybody else? Go once, going twice.
I'm all ears.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I am all ears.
You're all ears. You want to listen. Okay,
That's
so
good.
I am actually doing something I've never done before. It's kind of crazy, but it is me. You know me, I do weird things. I'm actually doing a webinar in depth in process and procedure on crisis control. That is going to go live on our website tonight, so you should be able to sign up for it if that is something you want to do. I am teaching a full-on course on crisis control, how to deal with crises from a car crashing into your property, from mold, from anything and everything that can go wrong. SWAT team raids, people with badges asking you for information, what you can and can't disclose. These are all things that we need to know so that we don't end up in that area we don't want to be in a courtroom with a lawsuit against us. So I'm going into detail and depth and teaching you crisis control, how to handle it, what questions to ask so that you're not chasing your tail. And I'm hoping my friend Stacy will help me out with that. I got the little smile. I can't hear you, Stacy. You're on mute. I can unmute you, maybe. Maybe. Let's try it. No, I can't unmute you. I know who can, though. Oh, you're unmuted.
Multitasking.
It's all good. So I'm going to have Stacy actually help chime in and ask some of those questions in the webinar that I may miss. She's very thorough at catching that back end of things of, hey, explain this process, or hey, what are you talking about there? So me working with her, I think will give everybody a better benefit as far as the class goes. But just so you guys know, we will be digging way deep down into my arsenal on how to handle sticky situations, what you can and can't do, where your liability stops, because that's always really important, and how to protect yourself, like truly protect yourself from all those crazy things that happen. SWAT teams raiding a property. I mean, I've been through a lot, trust me, okay? And I will tell you, because I think this is the funniest, I found out from the SWAT team raid from a radio station on my way to work. Right? Driving down the road, you hear dumbass of the day in Victor, and I'm like, I hope that's not one of my properties. I get to work, and it is. Happy Monday. So we'll talk about how to deal with a 3-day standoff with the SWAT team. We'll talk about how to deal with someone that's in your face with a badge stating that they want information. They're investigating a case, whether it be welfare fraud, because I did see quite a bit of that in the industry, all the way up to illegal firearms sales, and they want to see your video surveillance footage of your mailroom so they know who picked up that package. So just key things that I can help you guys with that you may be challenged with in the future, just to make sure you don't do or say the wrong thing. Very, very important. And whenever dealing with a crisis, we want to make sure that we come out smiling and squeaky clean. Okay? It's not a fun time to just guess or throw darts blindly to try to figure out which direction you need to go. There are very key questions that you can ask of the tenant, of the crisis, of the situation, to help you sum it up as quickly as possible and tell you exactly which direction you need to go. So I am really excited about this. So far I have 27 pages of notes to go over for this webinar. Eric's eyeballs went up. Yeah, Eric, anything that can and will go wrong does at the most inconvenient time. So from dealing with all those aspects of those challenges that we get on top of our regular book of business, I thought that I would enlighten everybody and try to teach them the way that I process and deal with the crisis control as far as procedure goes, just so that you stay on the straight and narrow and not in that yucky gray area that gets so scary so quickly.
That sounds amazing, Patty. When is the proposed date for that?
This is going to be on the 26th, Friday the 26th at 3 o'clock. And it's $75 for the webinar. I do have a tremendous discount if you're a Widget's Way member. So keep that in mind. But we will definitely be going over some crisis control things. Eric, I may even ask you to join us just so I have legal counsel in-house if I need it. I can't give you legal advice, you guys. I'm not an attorney, but I know one.
Yeah, but you build out more attorneys than anyone else.
Hey, sometimes, yes, Ed, we will be posting that on the website and sending out an email blast for that probably later this evening or even into tomorrow. We still got a week to go. So I don't want it too big because I want to make sure I answer everybody's questions and I take care of my people first, if you will, and get your questions answered and make sure that you don't have any concerns or things that could be different. We're also going to be talking about dealing with a death in a unit. Just because the tenant died doesn't mean the lease does, and that gets really tricky as well. So I'll be helping with all of that from a process and procedure perspective, not from a legal perspective. But if we need Eric, I would love it if you would join us, just so I could borrow you when I need it, if you will.
Thank you.
And no problem, thank you. Wanted to point out that they extended the state of they extended the moratorium to the end of July. They did something real tricky in LA County. I kind of like this. They extended part 1 of the moratorium and part 2 of the moratorium, but not part 3. So the government stating that the tenant needs to disclose how they were affected, why they were affected financially. They're not enforcing that anymore. And I had an idea that they couldn't enforce that, because here's my theory. Who hasn't been affected? Why are we asking them to prove it? And some people are taking that a step too far, saying, show me your bank account. Well, now you're way over the fence. Come back. Come back. Reel you back in. We've all been affected in some way, shape, or form. Affected? How? They're not asking us to determine how, okay? It's very tricky. So my theory is stay calm, keep it at a distance, and don't poke that bear just quite yet. We're seeing rules change as this COVID evolves. So it's making it a little bit more tricky. City of Los Angeles changed their municipal code that you cannot serve a notice to terminate tenancy during a pandemic, or it's susceptible to administrative fines, fees, and also, I lost the word, affirmative defenses. In other
What
words, a
about
tenant
for
can sue you.
other counties like San Bernardino?
All I'm saying is LA City changed their municipal code. Sometimes when that happens, other cities jump on the same bandwagon. So just lawmakers like to look over the fence. And all I'm saying is don't run and fight to go do that eviction. And we're not fighting to enforce this now. Let's approach it gingerly with little baby steps and not go in there with our hair on fire, because now people are having to rescind notices that were served so they don't get fined.
Okay.
And my theory is, and I'm 99.9% sure Eric is totally going to agree with me on this. You can serve notices until you're blue in the face. You can serve one every flipping month for the whole time the tenant lives there. But it's not until you act that that notice really matters. Because what we're doing is we're showing our teeth, okay? You owe 3 days, pay your rent or get out, right? We keep doing this. We keep showing our teeth. But if we can't bite on that 4th day when it expires, don't we look bad as property managers? And a lot of times when your legal counsel is ready to do an eviction, they want to see the new notice. They want to see what's going on. They want to know, when did you serve this? How was it served? Does this match the ledger? There's a lot of things involved. So a lot of times in property management, I didn't serve my notices until I was ready to attack. I almost had a catastrophe. Did you see that? Quick save. So a lot of times, even we'll get up to, I've been working with this tenant for 6 months. We're telling the attorney, blah, blah, blah. I've served 3 day after 3 day. That always scares legal counsel because they want the most current notice with the most current ledger to make sure you're not overstating or anything else, that you have no late fees. Eric's nodding his head. So a lot of times attorneys will do that final 3 day right before they're ready to file the case. So here's my theory. Why are we keep showing our teeth? We can't bite them. What do we look like as landlords? Wait, slow down, show your teeth, and then bite, okay? That is my theory. Don't waste your mental clarity trying to chase something that totally hasn't evolved yet. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Eric's like, yeah, I hear you, Patty.
It's
What
like
I'm
city-
saying is don't blindly
can't bite.
serve notices. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a waste of notices because there's nothing you can do about it anyways.
Right.
So wait until the time that you can. In the meantime, just maintain a cordial, cooperative relationship and try to get them to voluntarily pay whatever they can, or to behave as well as they can, or to
Play nice.
Okay.
Play nice.
And then bite them when you have the tools.
Yes, bite them when you have the tools, because if we keep showing our teeth, we don't look very threatening anymore,
Mhm.
right? It takes our position of power away if we're sending them idle threats we can't do anything with.
Right.
The 2 best tools we have still, ledger and your lease. 2 best tools you have. Would you agree with that? Eric?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and once we put it on a promissory note, it changes where that case could be filed, correct?
Yes, you lose the ability to have the accelerated action in a non-lawful detainer court. You have to go to a
So-
straight civil court.
So just so I have attorney verification, if you will. Somebody's got something going on and I can't hear him. It came through jarbled. Okay, but let me just ask you this, Eric. So my opinion, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, is once you take your rental agreement and put that money on a promissory note, That's only enforceable in small claims court, which does not give you possession of your unit, and small claims court takes forever. All that's going to give you is a money judgment. And if they don't have any money, what's that going to do for you? Nothing, okay? If you do it in eviction court, now that promissory note isn't valid in eviction court. That's enforceable in small claims court, okay? So be careful when you're doing that and trying to keep that balance right, that you don't change the terms to a whole different court that doesn't have any protections for you. Fair enough?
Yeah, and as a general rule, yes. Without having specific facts and looking at it at a specific instance, generally, yes, you cannot enforce a promissory note in the eviction court, and you can obtain property, possession of your property generally in a non-unlawful detainer court, and certainly not on the accelerated basis that unlawful detainer courts allow.
Right, so it's gonna take you longer to get a money judgment, but what are you gonna do with? So if you can avoid it, don't do promissory notes for the back of what they owe. Just add it to their ledger and tell them you'll keep a rolling balance. Right? Better business practice. Okay, anybody got a question?
I have two questions that I think based off of, of your discussion, I don't know anything about. If you could just give me a little clarity. And if I have the pronunciation right, if I'm hearing you correctly, something about when somebody dies, it's called a deafening unit or a deadening unit. What is that called?
We call it in the industry, we call it a death in a unit.
Oh, okay.
DIU.
Right.
DIU is a code between maintenance staff. When they walk in and say to the property manager, we have a DIU in unit 102, I know that we have a death in the unit, but all the people in my lobby don't.
Correct. Okay.
So it's just code that we use for somebody died. It could be murder, it could be natural causes, it could be suicide. I mean, anything can happen.
Okay. Okay. And then I think one other thing you had mentioned, or at least I guess it's maybe relevant for me right now. I'm going to be having a new tenant, and she's moving in. And do I need in terms of pay stubs? What is it? 1 month, 2 weeks? Is there anything on that at all? In terms, do I get anything in terms of financial record?
You can ask for a month of pay stubs, but there's something that you need to remember, okay, Nick?
Okay.
Pay stubs can be generated online.
Okay. Okay.
Anything the tenant's providing you as proof can be generated on the internet. Okay. I want to say it's $12 a document is the cheapest I've seen it for fake pay stubs.
Okay.
So the best tool that you have that the tenants can't alter is a credit report you ran, not one they ran, one you ran.
Great.
That is your holy grail. And if you learn to listen to your credit report, it'll tell you the whole story.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Maybe that's a whole nother class I need to do is understanding your rental agreement. Okay, Stacy, I see your hand come up. Wait, understanding your rental agreement and utilizing your credit report.
Right.
Okay, I might want to write those down. Yes, Stacy.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Nicholas, that credit report is super important because that's going to tell you if it's a good credit report. It's going to have the employer information on there because that's what's been reported to the IRS.
Okay.
It's also going to have the address and the residential history. So you should be able to look at their residential history and compare it to their credit report because that is also what they've submitted to the IRS.
Okay.
They're lying to the government. They're going to lie to you.
Okay.
And the theory is when they apply, they may produce a bunch of false documents, including a credit report they just had run. Have you heard of Photoshop? So here's the verbiage. I'm sorry. In order to ding your credit in the event that you don't fulfill your obligation, it's much easier for our company to do that if we actually ran your credit in the first place. Therefore, we will be running our own credit report.
Okay.
But thank you for providing me yours so I could compare. But I'm just telling you, anything you read on that application, grain of salt. All of your information needs to come from the credit report you run.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Anybody else have anything exciting to tell us? Yes, I'm still on vacation.
You have that Jersey look about you.
Well, I'm in Philadelphia on the farm still, so
Oh,
I'm having fun on 20 acres. Last night for 2 hours, I chased lightning bolts around the yard. I loved it. It's so much fun. Looks like little twinkle lights in the trees and the bushes and the grass. It's everywhere. I love it. I love it. So different. For us, if we get twinkle lights, it's usually from a siren, right?
Well, I guess I'll since nobody's, popped their hand up or anything, I will discuss something I discussed with Patty the other day. So I live in a college town, and sadly this time of year when I get a listing, I get, I don't know, 50, 60 college kids wanting to rent the property. And not to be rude or inconsiderate and go against fair housing, but they're not my favorite to rent to. Because I've got 4 different people or 5 different people, and they all have issues. And I don't like this person, I don't like that person. It's like, I don't get involved. You guys chose. So, of course.
I don't like to rent to property managers for the same damn reason.
There's a few of them we don't like to rent to. But anyway, staying within the law, of course. A number of them don't qualify for the property, so we have to work with guarantors. And it's a difficult situation, and I normally have students who are living on financial aid, but we do have a number of colleges here where the parents financially support them. So I had posed a question to Patty about what my criteria should be for guarantors. Our criteria for applicants, they have to make 3 times the monthly rent. They have to have a credit score of 650 or higher. So I said, Patty, what do I do? Because, I want to make sure that I'm being fair, but also making sure that these people qualify. So she gave me some really good advice and said, and made a good point. Guarantors are not only having to pay for their own household, but now they're having to pay for another household. So they have to make 7 times the monthly rent in income and have a credit score of 750 or higher. So it was really interesting to talk to her about that. And she also mentioned that they had to be a California state resident. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm writing it down. And then, of course, after I hung up, my wheels started turning. And I'm like, why would they need to be a California state resident? Like, most of these kids, their parents live out of state. So, of course, Monday morning, I called Patty. I wanted to give her the weekend off. And I said, Patty, I got to thinking about what you had to say. And, just kind of wondering, why do they have to be a California state resident? And she said that, and I'm pulling my notes here because I want to make sure I say it right, but basically,
if you don't, I'll fix it.
housing cannot cross state lines. Landlord and tenant laws are different than consumer debt laws.
For collection purposes.
For collection purposes. So in the event that they don't make good on that debt, we would then be able to go after them. So it was just very interesting. And, I don't deal with this a whole lot. But during this time of year, it unfortunately comes up quite a bit. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that story with you guys in the event that you also may live in a college town or have students that are looking for housing. I think right now more than ever with colleges being on the fence as to whether they're going to reopen or not, you're going to find that maybe more students are looking for off-campus housing. And that is all.
Be careful. And it doesn't have to do with students and co-signers, just for the record. Everybody needs to know this. Your tenant moves out and they move to Kansas, chances are you're not going to be able to collect that debt over state line. They don't do wage garnish. It's really hard for you to go get a judgment on somebody in another state. I don't even think they allow it. You have to do it on the state, in the county where the incident happened, and then that really doesn't affect them. So if you have someone that is defaulted and there is a cosigner involved across state lines, I would suggest that you approach it with the best customer service skills you have. And maybe approach it in the event of, hey, Eric, I know you got a kid in college. You know, we've all been there. We've done that. Unfortunately, your kid in college has caused some damage to my unit. You co-signed. And rather than me put a ding on your credit and make your life miserable, maybe you just want to pay this so it goes away. Right? As a co-signer?
Well, I certainly would not want my credit dinged for some silly kid that I just co-signed for. So,
right.
Yeah, I would pay it.
Remember, and I would too. I'm a responsible parent, and then I'd beat the crap out of my kid. But hey, it's no longer child abuse if they're bigger than you are. And I've been telling my kids that since they were like 9. So just be mindful of that. It's really hard to cross state lines and still be able to use our teeth, especially in debt collection instances. It's extremely difficult. We don't have the power like a credit card company or a big corporation that has big corporate attorneys. So once they cross that state line, pretty much we got to wait for them to come back to California to do something about it.
Patty?
Yes.
Hey, I have a question in regards to debt collection. I noticed I use Appfolio for my property management software, and they have a debt collection service that you can sign up for. Do I need to get consent of all the owners to do that? Because I think it's an all or nothing. Are you able to tell me about that legality-wise?
I could talk to you a little bit based on my experience in the industry, but I cannot give you legal advice.
Okay, give me a suggestion.
The industry standard is a 50-50 split on debt collection.
Patty?
Okay, that's the industry standard. I will tell you that
40-60?
It's a 50-50 is the industry standard. Okay. Fast eviction service is a 60-40. You get 60% of everything they collect, and they keep 40%, but you also don't pay any fines, fees, penalties, and it's 60% of everything you collect. Fees, fines, interest, all of that, it all gets lumped together and comes back to you. So my question is, how much is Appfolio charging you? How successful are they?
It's a 60-40.
Okay, so
it's
it's
a
the same
60-40.
as fast eviction service. Do they have an attorney?
Right.
Because you're going to have to substitute in their attorney. So these owners are going to have to sign a substitution of attorney because they didn't do the eviction.
Okay.
So you're going to have a sub of attorney come in for that to sub them in as the attorney for record. My question is, how successful has Appfolio been with their debt collection?
I honestly don't know, but I do remember that years ago I was looking into debt collection, and this guy, I think from Florida, reached out to me, and he said that it's a numbers game, and the more cases you have, the more likely they're able to collect. So I'm thinking maybe Appfolio has more leverage because they have a lot more cases. I don't know if that makes any sense, but they're representing a lot of landlords, a lot of property managers.
Let me explain something to you. The little guy with one debt collection and the guy worth hundreds of thousands of debt collections, there's no difference between them, except if you get the guy with all the business, you might get more money.
You might get more money?
Right, as a business. So them telling you that they're bigger, they can do this, they're just selling you.
Got it.
Okay? The little guy,
okay.
500 doors, one door. No difference when it comes to debt collection. It's how quickly are you getting your writs of execution? Are you implementing your sheriff wage garnishments? I mean, debt collection and I only know this because I worked at the law firm for 4 years, has a very similar process and procedure to property management in general. They have to send a letter, they have to wait 30 days. They have to send another letter, they have to wait 30 days. So there's all these rules they have to follow too.
I see.
So I would want to know, how successful are you at the 5-year mark? That would be a question that I would be asking them. And do you automatically renew my judgment after 10 years? That's another question I'd ask them. Because the judgment's renewable after 10 years for a total of 20. But if you don't renew it before that 10-year mark, guess what? It died.
Disappears.
Yep.
Got it.
Just like that. And it happens.
Thank you.
quick. No worries, no worries. But there's a couple questions I would ask them in regards to their debt collection, like how successful are you at the 5-year mark? What percentage are you collecting at the 5-year mark? A lot of people want to go run and jump and sink our teeth into them right after they got evicted. Then we want to do small claims. We want to do this. The reality is it takes them 2 years to recover. Okay, if you get put out of a house and you get evicted and you lose your job, it takes you a couple years to recover from that. So going after them, you can't get blood out of a turnip. I've learned in debt collection, if you slow down and approach it a little bit later and not be so running in there to fight, you have 4 years. Statute of limitations is 4 years on a written contract, 2 years on an oral agreement. So you could go back 2 years from now and do your small claims case, and then they've recovered, so now they're more likely to fix it.
Got it.
When you're bleeding and you're getting hit with cannonballs, you're just like, take me out, please. But once you've recuperated and you're on the road to success and rehealing, it's easier to make a payment arrangement agreement or things of that nature. So it's always better, in my opinion, to let them recover instead of being waiting at the bushes to hit them again, because it's like a piñata. You can hit it all you want. Nothing's going to come out of it. You got to wait for it to fill up again, if you will.
Understood.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much.
Anytime, anytime. But I definitely ask those 2 questions because those are key.
Patty, I have a somebody that's my problem tenant, and they got a boyfriend now.
Tenants are never a problem.
At least I only have one.
Right.
But
we all have that one.
Yeah. So she's got a boyfriend now that seems to be paying some money, and I'm wondering if I should try to put the boyfriend on the lease.
What city is this property located in?
Los Angeles City. And
how long it's rent control? I got you. How long
but it's a build in 2017.
I understand. So you're under. I got you. I have a question. How long has he been living there?
I think he may have been living there. Like there's no proof of him living there, but I think he might have been living there like a while now. When did it,
and this is a very tricky question, and Eric knows where I'm going with this.
When did you first discover?
Yes, when did you have knowledge? When did you first discover that he was in the unit? Because you have 45 days max from that date, or you waive it.
Okay. Yeah, like I haven't collected any money from him.
Okay, but when did you first discover that you think that they've been in the unit? Has that happened in the last week?
Okay, well, that's another discussion of like what constitutes discovering, because like when I'm doing gardening and stuff, I've seen him around, but
he could
like
be a
I haven't
guest
collected.
at that point.
Right.
When did you have an inkling? Was it very recently? I'm trying.
Yes. Actually, I haven't even discovered it yet. Like he might not be living there, but he might.
Okay. The way that you would start that process would be a 3-day curable breach of covenant for an authorized occupant.
Okay. But can you do that now, Patty, with the COVID?
I would talk to your legal counsel. Hold on a minute. Let me play this through my head. We can't terminate tenancy in LA because they changed LA City Municipal Code, but we're not terminating tenancy. We're giving them an option. It's not a 3-day quit. I would ask your legal counsel to be very honest with you, because I'm even questioning that.
Okay.
And here's how I would approach it. Is it a problem that he's there? Let's talk.
No.
It's not a problem. You're not going to increase the rent, right? Because you're getting.
Right.
So I would ask, is he living there now? Because if so, we really need him to fill out an application so that we can add him to the contract.
Yeah, because I was thinking if he's got his credit on the line, and like I could be like, hey, you might want to sign up for this to be a tenant, so that like you can have more control, and if she leaves, you can still be living there. And since I think he's responsible, like he might be the better person to have there.
Well, the idea is we want to hold as many people as accountable as we possibly can.
Right.
But in LA City, you waive your right to do anything once you have knowledge over 30 days.
Yeah.
45 days is where the attorney says, I can't help you anymore. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, I don't even know if he's living there
accept
yet.
rent, if you accept rent and you think this is going on, you waive it.
Okay.
Okay? LA City, very, very different, foreign, very restrictive. Okay? So I would, if you're not going to raise the rent and you just want to hold someone else accountable, I'd say, hey, since your boyfriend's here all the time, he's living here, right? I just need you to fill out an application and add him to the rental agreement. And the reason that we want to go ahead and do that is so that he has rights as a tenant.
Okay. Can I have him just pull out the old rental agreement and just have him sign and date like next to everybody?
It would be a better business practice for you to even fill out an addendum and have everybody sign the addendum.
Okay, so that's what I should do. I'm thinking if I do it, I'm gonna pull out an addendum, have everybody sign the addendum,
stating that you're adding this person to the contract. Yes, because if you add them to the old lease and he didn't, and the application, you don't want to mess with your lease contract. Addendum is how you would fix that.
Okay. All right.
Can you not?
The way I look at it is once you sign a lease, that's it. It's solid. You can't touch it. You can file paperwork to change it by doing addendums or addenda, but you don't want to touch that. That's like solid gold, if you will.
And then on that note, I have a question. Can you replace the previous lease with a new lease?
If all parties agree in LA County, yes. Most likely in City of Los Angeles, the original contract controls, unless a new contract signed and all parties agree. Perfect. So you can't force them to sign a new rental agreement. You can't.
Okay.
So sometimes it's easier to do an addendum that they agree to the terms and sign that way and add that to the original contract that you have. You also, in the City of Los Angeles, cannot change anything except your attorney's fees clause, your annual rent increase, your annual deposit increase, because you guys should be raising deposits also when you raise rent in LA. Because what's a 200?
County or city?
City.
Okay.
City of Los Angeles. You can change the attorney's fees clause. You really can't change anything. You can't go back and say, okay, you guys, now you have to pay for renter's insurance. You can't do that in the City of Los Angeles. The original term controls, and if it's more restriction on the tenant, you can't do it. So don't even try. Make sure.
Patty, I recently.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done speaking. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm never done talking.
I was going to ask a question. I recently took over a property. It's in the City of Los Angeles, and there was no lease. The tenant is actually a relative of the owner, and there was never a lease signed. And the owner, is upset with her relative and wanted me to sign a lease. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Yeah.
Okay, number one problem in property management, family. Okay, when you're dealing with a landlord that rented to their cousin, their nephew, their niece, their sister, their brother, and now they're not paying the rent, it's always a problem. Okay?
The previous property manager was the brother of the tenant, just FYI.
Of course.
Yeah.
Eric's still trying to put that together. He's like, huh?
I think
It's always more difficult when you have family involved, always. I've had it get all the way up to eviction to evict someone out of their own house, out of a room in their own house. They got all the way into court, and then the landlord said, well, we don't really want anything bad to happen to them.
Great.
My favorite one is when an owner shows up at a lockout and the tenant says, but it's raining. You can't put me out in the rain, right? And the landlord says, you can have a couple more days. You be gone by tomorrow. What did they just do, Eric? Extended the tenancy.
Hey.
Guess what you have to do?
Start all over.
a new eviction. You tell them they can stay there for one day. You made a tenancy. Now you have to evict again.
Wow.
go back to go to not collect $200.
Yeah. Hey, that's my saying. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not do that at all. So be mindful, if you tell somebody they can stay an extra day, you just extended a whole new tenancy to them. You start a whole new eviction. Ouch.
Yeah.
So I put a new automatic locking lock on the front, like a community gate, and
Okay.
I put a lock box out near the front, so that, and gave everybody the code so that, and I said you guys could put a key in there, you know, so that the Amazon guy can get in and deliver packages, or if somebody gets, I didn't say all this, but like if somebody gets locked out, like they can let themselves back in. So if they lose their key, like somebody loses their key, can I just tell people, hey, like you gotta, if it's not in the lockbox, like I don't have to drive out there to give them a key, do I? Like I could just say, you got to come to my, like wherever I'm at, and pay $20 for another key or something like that.
Okay, let me ask you a whole bunch of questions, okay? Number one, what does your lease contract say regarding
Okay, I think
keys
it
to
says
the property?
$20 per key.
Okay, so
Yeah.
did you provide everybody with a key?
Yeah,
You provided everyone with a key, so
I gave
everyone
each unit
has a
5 keys, and I like documented it.
Okay, and did they sign that they took 5 keys or no? If they didn't, it's okay.
No,
It is what
they
it is.
didn't.
Okay, that's fine.
No.
So if your rental agreement says that they're going to be charged $20 for any lost key, then that would be the case. In the event that they've locked themselves out, they would then in turn have to contact you to let them in, or a locksmith.
Okay. And then,
During
am I in any
business
rush
hours-
to give them a key? Like if I'm like,
Hold on.
Catalina Island.
During business hours, you need to get out there and do that. After business hours, it would be their responsibility to contact a locksmith.
wow. So I could have to drive around across town, spend 2 hours of my time to give them a key.
Let me tell you what I did, okay?
Okay.
And then you can kind of go, okay. What I did is I tell them, I'm sorry, we don't provide key service. It is considered an emergency. For us to go to the office, pick up the keys for your property, and bring them out to you, we charge $100 cash.
Okay.
Okay? If you want me to do that, I'd be more than happy to do that. It is cash on arrival. It's not on your ledger. You give me green money right now today, or you can contact a locksmith, and we'd be more than happy to help you during business hours first thing tomorrow.
Okay, but I can only do that if it's not like off of business hours. But during business hours, I have to drive across town and only get $20 to give them a key. Oh wow. Okay.
Well, no. You're saying that's $20 for a lost key. You haven't disclosed a lockout price.
Oh. Okay.
You with me? That $20 that's in your rental contract covers the cost of the keys. They don't return when they move out.
Okay, I got it.
That's where
okay.
that $20 comes in. Okay.
So I'll say like we don't provide like lost key service. If you want, I can charge you this much to drive out there.
I'm $100 cash green money today, or you can contact a locksmith, or we'd be more than happy to help you during business hours tomorrow. And the reality of that statement is, if they don't want you to come out there, they broke a window. You may want to go inspect in the next few days, right?
It'll cost you
Yeah.
money.
So they will break a window and not say anything. They'll be sly about how they break the window too. So if you hit, I don't know if you guys know this, if you hit a glass pane window in an right where the locking mechanism is, maybe I should disclose, I'm not teaching you how to break into something. If you hit it with the claw end of a hammer, it'll break a half moon. So it's real easy just to stick a pin up there and flip that lock over and then lift the window up. You ever go in a house where you just see a half moon break at the window and you're like, what is that? It's just this half, it's because they tapped it with a hammer, it broke that way, and now there's only this little gap that's just big enough you can stick a pin in and flip that thing around.
Patty, do you have a history of criminal activity or something?
No, but I've gotten into plenty of houses that I couldn't get into before.
Okay.
As a property manager, all kinds of weird things happen to you, right? Like I shouldn't know so much about toilets and water heaters that I do, but I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've got to go. So thank you very much.
Eric, thank
allowing me
you
to spend some
for
time with
joining us. And we'll talk about the 26th, okay? I'd love to have you in case I need legal, if you're good with that.
I've got it on my calendar. Thanks. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Eric. Thank
All right,
you.
everyone. Good to see you, Ed.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, if I have a like just if I ever get a toy hauler and renting it out to somebody, and eventually they don't pay rent, it's in the backyard. Would the court cover me if I had to evict? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
The court will cover you if you have to evict. However, depending on the city you're in, it could be considered an illegal dwelling. If you don't have a certificate of occupancy, how are you collecting rent? Okay.
Yeah, so that would probably be the case if I did that. So what would happen?
You could owe all the rent back that the tenant ever paid you throughout the time they lived there.
Oh, dang.
Especially in the city of Los Angeles, where they are very pro-tenant.
No
Got
way.
it.
Yes way. Ed's laughing because he recently had something where they had an unpermitted unit that didn't have a certificate of occupancy. Well, if it doesn't have a certificate of occupancy, how are you collecting rent on it?
Right.
It's not fit to live in, is how they look at that. Ouch.
I didn't talk about- I
Right?
don't know if you asked me a question, but I couldn't hear you.
They are making new provisions with the homelessness
Patty?
initiatives. Wait, hang on. So you may find some protections with the homelessness initiative. So the city of Los Angeles may become a little bit more lenient with that. Go ahead, Ed. Ed, where'd you go?
He went to
You're still on mute.
cyberspace.
I don't know. I see Stacy and she's on the phone.
I'm off the phone. Sorry, I was
Okay.
expecting that call for a while.
I thought somebody tried to ask me a question and now I'm not getting it. So I tried.
There's Ed. He's there now.
Okay. Ed, did you have a question or a statement? It must not have been him. Does anybody have anything else they want to chit chat about? Otherwise, I'm going to get off of here until next Wednesday. Where will I be next Wednesday? I'll still be here on the farm next Wednesday. I think we have a Wednesday coming up where I'll be in the Jersey Shore, though.
Nice.
That should be fun.
Nice.
We'll see if I can get cell service out on the dock. We'll do a webinar from the dock, right?
There you go.
So I heard that I haven't watched the news in Don't get me wrong. I follow legislative stuff, but I don't watch the actual news. I heard that some people in Seattle have, like, taken over part of the town. Is that true?
There's some truth to that, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little truth to that.
I'm like,
It's like
okay.
that 98%, you know, back in 08 where they occupied city halls and Central Park and
Yes, yes.
but it's obviously for a different reason, for the whole thing that's going on with police and things like that. But yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I mean, let's just face it. That officer unfortunately murdered that suspect.
Yep.
It is what it is.
Mhm.
It is what it is, you know? And like I said before, and I'll say it again, because I strictly and firmly believe of this, there are 2% of all human beings that are corrupt. We have corrupt attorneys, corrupt car mechanics, corrupt property managers. I mean, 2% of all humans are in, we got that in tenants too, just so you know, but I think the level's a little higher, not so much 2%. So my theory is until we stop recruiting humans, it's not going to fix the problem. Right? But people need to be held accountable for their actions regardless.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll get it all figured out at some point or another, right?
We're landlords in this state, so why can't other people be accountable for their actions in other states?
I mean, you just lied.
Whatever.
Oh, don't get Stacy started.
Don't get me riled up. And just before we get off, Patty, did you get my email yesterday about that case law?
I did see that about case law. I actually sent that over to some legal counsel friends of mine, both on tenants. I sent it to a tenant attorney and 2 landlord attorneys, just wanting their recap on how they feel about that and what's going on.
Would you update me, and maybe, I don't know if you'll have an opportunity to maybe update this group, but we'll see. We'll see.
So just so everybody understands, and I'll take it down a step further. AGLA, the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, is suing the city for their moratorium. God love AGLA. So a lot of people are trying to sue right now, landlord-wise, against the system that is binding our hands. I mean, come on, it's not fair right now, you know? So we're going to see a lot more lawsuits come about because of that. Yes, good for AGLA. I agree. Come on, AGLA. I really enjoy that apartment association.
I chipped in money for that too.
Yep, I do.
Right. AGLA listens when we talk to him. Like Dan, right when COVID happened, he's like, Patty, you know, there's so many moving pieces. And I'm like, just put the moratoriums on your website. Because that's at property managers, that's what we need. What are the rules? We need to know what the rules are, right? So just put the rules on your website. He's like, I'll do it for free. I'm like, great, I'll send all the property managers I can to find out what the rules are on your website. That's fine. But he listens. When we have a problem, he listens. He pays attention to us. They're very involved in the political side of things, extremely involved. So as far as that goes in fighting for our rights, AGLA's definitely got their head in the game. I will say that about them. Most definitely. What about anybody? I'm sorry, say that again, Stacy.
I said, somebody's got to have our back, because I'm going to be completely honest, and I'm just going to get a little political here, but I think this whole thing is unconstitutional when it comes to landlords. It is absolute, excuse my French, bullshit.
It's bureaucracy and bullshit at its finest. I mean, come on. We're making all these rules and all these laws for tenants to repay these COVID rent loans, and we're talking about 5% of our tenant population.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we making all these laws and rules for only 5% of the tenant population?
Yep.
It's funny because I'm here in Pennsylvania and I'm telling people, you know, I deal with property management, and they start laughing right away and they're like, we're sorry, your tenants don't pay the rent. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Tenants don't pay the rent. They're like, well, you guys have all these laws and all these tenant rights and blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but 95% of all of our tenants paid the rent. So you tell me why we have these bullshit laws.
So you both speak French. I speak Spanish, and we use the same word.
I like your language a lot better. It sounds more intense and scary.
Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you guys something just so you know, and you'll see me do this at some point. Just laugh. You'll see me in a class put my hand like this and do this, and I'll do it very quickly. This is sign language for bullshit. Just so you know. So if you see me in a class and all of a sudden you see these two fingers go up, yeah, bullshit. I just can't say it.
How about these two fingers? You take away one. That's sign language.
I have a funny one, okay? And you guys will love this story. Working in corporate America, okay? The vice president of the company calls me one day and says, you guys need to stop flipping each other off on camera. I can see it. Okay, because we used to always be, you answer the phone. No, you answer the phone. It's my turn. So they're like, we can see you on camera flipping each other off. Stop it. No problem. So, of course, everybody's pissed. They can't flip anybody off anymore. So we just started saying, you're number one. Well, I was the regional manager, so I dealt with all the problems. So my employees would come tell me, you're number one, Patty. And they'd be mad because they want to say, bite me, and they can't. And they can't flip me off, so they'd just tell me, you're number one. You're number one. We had these big foam fingers like a team that said, you're number one, you're number one. One day, the president of the company comes and sits at my desk with me and says, you know, it's pretty cocky of you to have your staff tell you consistently all day that you're number one. I'm going, that's not what they're really telling me. They're really telling me to read between the lines. I'm not that big-headed, I promise. He's like, you're demanding they tell you you're number one. Yeah, I'm number one, all right. Just not that finger. So yes, I got in trouble for that. So that year at the Christmas party, we all got foam fingers that said you're number one, and we all cheered with our big giant foam fingers. God love corporate America, right?
No kidding.
We can see you on camera.
This is our corporate America.
Right. We can say anything.
Hey, at least it keeps us all involved. We remember that we're only human at the end of the day, and everybody else seems to be having the same challenges that we have. So we're not alone, you know? We're all in this together. Somebody else might have a better idea of what's working well for them versus what's working for somebody else. Stacy had a great way for us to all incorporate doing tours during the shutdown. So thank you, Stacy, for that. And everybody seems to be using this as you will, a support group for property management, where we all get together and talk about our challenges and our trials and tribulations and how we fix things. And it seems to work, right?
Stacey, I have a question for you.
We love you, Patty.
No, thank you.
You're number one.
You guys are going to tell me that now, and I'm going to know that you're flipping me off in my mind. So you'll have to tell me you're number one. And I already know. Okay, great. Thanks.
Stacey, I have a question for you. When you, with what you're doing, I think, if you can probably answer it, along the lines of tenants signing documents, is there any protocol that you're using with this whole COVID thing?
Yeah, so normally without COVID, I will meet clients in my office to go over the lease agreement. That way I can ensure that they know what the lease says, that they get it. I can answer any questions. But obviously with COVID now, that has sort of changed how I have to do business. So what I do now is I do send it over to them for e-signature. So I basically put in an email before I send it, and I say, you know, I'm sending you the lease agreement via e-signature. Please review it. If you have any questions about anything that you're reading, please do not sign it until we've had a chance to discuss any of those questions. You know, 99.9% of the time, they never even contact me. So I am having to do it via e-signature right now.
Is that an app? That's a dumb question.
Oh, so there's two ways you can do this. I don't know who you're a member with, but I'm a member of the California Association of Realtors, and through them, we obviously have documents that we can use, and there's a system called ZipLogix. It's like DocuSign, and that's how we send it for e-signature. I know CAA, who we're also a member of, the California Apartment Association, they have forms, and I believe if you're a member and you do have their forms online, you also have the ability to send via e-signature. I don't know how many properties you have, Nicholas, but I just renewed my membership today with CAA. I like to have both. I also have AGLA. I'm a new member of AGLA due to Patty referring me to them. I don't know if they do e-signature, but my renewal with CAA was about $405, but I also donate to their legal voluntary legal funds so that they can help us. I think without that it was like $305. But I would highly recommend that because they have so many forms that you can use, and it's just really wonderful and convenient, and that would give you the ability to send those leases e-signature.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
You can also, through NARPM has Blue Ink, which is also a kind of a DocuSign. And if you're using AppFolio, it's built in.
It's called, repeat the name?
AppFolio is go ahead, Patty.
Okay, no, I see that you're driving it. We passed a street sign a while ago. I'm like, oh, where is he? Okay, so AppFolio is an accounting software system. AppFolio, it's an accounting software system. I want to say it's about $2,000 just to get started, and then they charge you $1.50 to $2 per door per month. And that starts once you're up over 200 doors. As far as California Apartment Association, they do e-signing through DocuSign. So does CAR, which is the California Association of Realtors. They do everything e-signing now. So we're going to see a lot more of that. For a small book of business, I would say 10 doors or less. I would look at something called CozyCo. So it's COZY.co. And basically it's so that tenants can pay their rent online and landlords can deal with that directly. They do have a small amount of forms and documents on CozyCo, but it's a great tool for a smaller landlord.
And that's, they do the e-signs too?
They can do the e-signs too. I would just check with them. AppFolio is, if you have 100 doors or more, I would definitely be in for AppFolio. But for a small book of business, 10, 15 doors, I don't see that it's financially lucrative. I mean, this program generates 1099s for you. You don't need that. You know what I mean?
It's a wonderful program, but only if you can,
yes,
justify it.
I love it. I'm just so everybody knows, I'm well versed with Yardi, Yardi Voyager, all of them, Yardi Breeze now. So very well versed with Yardi, AppFolio, Rent Collect, CozyCo, and I have like 2 other ones I'm with. But when it comes to helping you understand that, sometimes I can help. Just let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
But CozyCo is probably more up your alley. I even believe it's a free program.
Oh, that's even a better price.
Right? It's my favorite price.
That's only until they get a large enough customer base, then they'll start charging for it.
Oh, exactly. Isn't that how everything works?
Yeah.
As soon as they figure out they made something good, they want money.
Patty, what do you think about Zillow starting to charge for advertising?
Well, do you want my honest opinion?
I
And
do.
you may not know this. We've all heard of rent.com, right? Okay. Everybody knows that apartments bought for rent.com, right?
Right.
Okay. So for rent.com and apartments.com are now together and they're owned by CoStar. CoStar went in and bought up as much of the small advertising companies as they possibly could for a reason. Now CoStar's competition is Zillow and Trulia. So of course they're going to start charging. They got to make their money somewhere.
Yeah. Sucks, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it expensive, do you know?
Is what?
It's $1.46 per listing per day.
If you want to advertise somewhere, I would suggest HotPads. HOTPADZ. HotPads. Stay away from Craigslist. It is a cesspool for fraud. Everybody's like, yes, Craigslist is a cesspool for fraud. Everybody is agreeing with that statement. But if you want to find prostitutes, apparently that's the place to go. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I made all the men giggle. Come on.
What's the location though?
I don't know. You'd have to contact Craigslist. I'm out. HotPads seems to be extremely lucrative. They also auto-generate and put up to Zillow, Trulia, and everywhere else they could possibly help filter that through for you, and they do it for you. So it makes it much easier. It doesn't cost you anything to advertise on HotPads. It is free.
And you're not saying hot pants, right? You're saying hot pads.
PADS. I have octopus on my pants today because I'm chilling in my leggings. I'm on vacation, remember?
Okay. Okay.
Tonight I'll try to videotape the fireflies. You guys will see I'm not crazy.
And about, are you on water or is this all imaginary? Or is this in your tub or is this
No, I'm in Pennsylvania on a 20-acre farm. Last night I watched fireflies for hours. We don't have fireflies in California, lightning bugs.
But what was your location to watch them? Were you like in a tree?
Oh no, I was on the front porch.
Oh, nice.
They're everywhere. One got in the house. Don't ask. Get me out of the city for a couple days and I'm a whole different person. All right, anybody have anything they want to talk about, or I'm going to end this until next Wednesday. And don't forget, sign up for next Thursday. We'll be doing the crisis control and go into in-depth detail in how to deal with those situations as they transpire.
Thursday or Friday?
That's going to be Friday the 26th, the webinar.
Okay.
Okay, but I'll be back next Wednesday for you guys for our Wednesdays with Widget.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right.
Appreciate your time.
No worries. If anybody needs anything, you guys all know how to hunt me down.
Thank you.
You're the best. You're number one.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much, Ed.
Yeah.
I love it. You're number one.
You're number one.
Okay.
But you
That was
really
our
are
code.
number one.
It was our code.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have a great day.
Bye. Take care. Thank you so much, Patty.
Okay, bye, you guys. Stay safe.
Bye. Bye.